Last episode, we said a hardware wallet is not magic. It is a signing device. That line raises the next question. What is the device actually being asked to sign? That is where PSBTs come in. PSBT stands for Partially Signed Bitcoin Transaction. The name sounds technical because it is technical, but the beginner model is simple. A PSBT is a transaction package before it is fully finished. It can move between software, hardware wallets, multisig participants, or other tools while the pieces needed for signing and finalizing are added. Think of it as the envelope your wallet hands to a signer. The envelope does not need to contain your private key. It contains transaction information and metadata that help the signer understand what is being signed. Bitcoin Core describes PSBT as an interchange format for Bitcoin transactions that are not fully signed yet, together with metadata that helps different tools work towards signing it. BIP 174 defines the original PSBT format. It is not a brand. It is not a wallet company feature. It is a standard way for Bitcoin tools to pass around an unfinished transaction. That standard matters because self-custody is rarely one object doing everything. Your wallet software may watch balances and choose coins. Your hardware wallet may hold signing authority. A multisig setup may require more than one signer. An air-gapped device may never touch the internet. Those pieces need a way to coordinate. PSBT is one of the formats that lets them coordinate. Here's the simple flow. Step 1. The wallet software builds a proposed transaction. It chooses inputs, outputs, fee information, and the destination. Step 2. That proposed transaction is represented as a PSBT. It is not finished yet. Step 3. The signer reviews what it can review. For a hardware wallet, this usually means the device displays the amount, address, and other transaction details. Step 4. If the human approves, the signer adds a signature. Step 5. The signed result is finalized and broadcast to the Bitcoin network. That is the shape. Create, review, sign, finalize, broadcast. The important lesson is separation. PSBT separates construction from signing. The computer can prepare the transaction without holding the final signing authority. The hardware wallet can sign without becoming a full wallet interface. Different signers can add signatures without handing one person every key. That is why PSBTs show up around hardware wallets, multisig, CoinJoin, and other coordinated workflows. They are boring infrastructure for safer coordination. But boring does not mean automatic. A PSBT is not a magic safety wrapper. It is a format. A format can carry good information. It can also carry a transaction you should not sign. That is why the previous episode matters. The object signs. You verify. The signer does not care about your intention. It signs the transaction data it is given. If the output address is wrong, the signature does not fix the address. If the amount is wrong, the signature does not fix the amount. If the fee is strange, the signature does not explain the economics. If the change output is misunderstood, the signature does not teach wallet context. So PSBTs make coordination possible. They do not remove responsibility from the person approving the signature. This is where beginners often get lost. They hear partially signed and imagine a half transaction floating around dangerously. The better model is the transaction is being assembled in stages. Before enough valid signatures exist, it cannot spend the coins. After enough signatures exist and the transaction is finalized, it can be broadcast. So the PSBT stage is where review matters most. It is the checkpoint before authority becomes movement. Here's a normal hardware wallet example. You open wallet software on your laptop. The software sees your balances because it has public wallet information. It can calculate which coins to spend. It can estimate a fee. It can build the transaction skeleton, but it should not need the private keys that authorize the spend. So the laptop prepares the transaction package. The hardware wallet receives that package. The hardware wallet checks what it can check. Then it asks the human, is this the transaction you meant to approve? That is the moment PSBT is supposed to help. The online computer can be good at watching and building. The signing device can be good at holding keys and signing. The PSBT is the handoff between those jobs. Now imagine an air-gapped setup. The signing device is deliberately kept away from the internet. The transaction package may move by QR code or by file. Again, the point is not that QR codes are magic. The point is role separation. The internet-connected machine prepares. The offline signer signs. The signed transaction returns to an online machine for final broadcast. The private key does not need to ride along with the transaction. That is why the format matters. Without a shared format, every tool would need its own awkward translation layer. With PSBT, different tools have a more standard way to pass the unfinished transaction around. Another way to say it, a PSBT is not the money moving. It is the proposed movement waiting for approval. That distinction matters emotionally. Beginners see a file, QR code, or long encoded string and panic. But the useful question is not, what does every character mean? The useful question is, what transaction is this asking me to approve? Where are the inputs coming from? Where is the payment going? Where is the change going? What is the fee? Which wallet or signer is expected to sign? Do I understand why this transaction exists? And one more question deserves its own spotlight. Where is the change going? Bitcoin transactions do not work like swiping a debit card. They spend specific pieces of Bitcoin called outputs. If the pieces being spent are larger than the payment, the remaining value usually comes back to you as change. That change output can look like another destination in the transaction. If you do not recognize the change behavior, a normal transaction can feel suspicious. If you ignore the change behavior, a suspicious transaction can feel normal. That is why the hardware wallet screen matters. That is also why the wallet software matters. The signer may show an address and an amount, but the wallet context helps explain why those pieces are there. PSBT connects the tools. It does not replace the need to understand the wallet's explanation. That is the human side of PSBT. The technical standard exists so tools can communicate. The human standard is that you do not approve what you do not understand. Now add multisig. In a multisig setup, one signer is not enough. The PSBT can move from one signer to another, collecting signatures until the spending policy is satisfied. That does not mean every signer learns every secret. It means the transaction package can gather the authorizations it needs. This is powerful. It is also why non-secret context matters. Think about a 2 of 3 business wallet. One key may sit in an office. One key may be held by a founder. One key may be held in a recovery location. If the business needs to pay a vendor, a PSBT can be created and passed to the needed signers. Each signer can add a signature without every signer controlling the entire wallet alone. That is the promise. But the risk is social and operational. If signers do not know what a normal payment looks like, they may sign something they should question. If nobody maintains labels, invoices, destination context, or internal approval notes, the transaction can be technically valid and organizationally confusing. So the same sentence keeps coming back. PSBT coordinates signatures. It does not coordinate judgment. If 3 people are asked to sign something, they need to know what they are signing. Not the seed words, not the private keys, the context. Is this a normal payment? Is it a recovery transaction? Is it a consolidation? Is it a mistake? Is it moving coins to a wallet everyone recognizes? PSBT helps the machines coordinate. It does not make the humans aligned. That is a repeated theme in self-custody. The protocol can enforce signatures. It cannot enforce understanding. PSBT version 2, described in BIP 370, adds another layer to the story. The beginner does not need to memorize the fields. The useful point is that the PSBT standard evolved because real workflows needed more flexibility. BIP 370 explains that the original PSBT version fixed the global unsigned transaction, which meant new inputs and outputs could not be added after creation. PSBT v2 changes that structure. Again, not a detail most beginners need on day 1. But it reinforces the big idea. PSBT is workflow infrastructure. It is not just a file. It is how different tools cooperate around an unfinished transaction. This also explains why PSBT is not just for experts, even if experts talk about it more. Many beginners will never manually inspect a PSBT field. That is fine. You do not need to read every internal key value map to understand the safety model. You need to understand what stage you are in. Before signing, you are reviewing a proposal. After signing, you have added authority. After finalization and broadcast, the transaction can enter the network. Those stages are different. Confusing them is how people click through screens that deserved attention. So what should you actually remember? First, a PSBT is a partially signed transaction package. Second, it helps separate transaction construction from signing. Third, it is useful for hardware wallets, air-gapped signing, multisig, and collaborative workflows. Fourth, It is not automatically safe. You still verify the details before signing. Fifth, if you do not understand what the transaction is doing, the correct move is to stop, not to click through. This is the security lesson. More advanced formats do not remove the need for simpler habits. Read the screen, confirm the destination, understand the amount, recognize change, respect fees, know which wallet is involved. Do not publish transaction data casually. Do not paste private material into random tools. And do not confuse my hardware wallet asked me to approve with this transaction must be correct. The device is a signer. The PSBT is the package. The human is the last line of context. That is why Bitcoin self-custody keeps returning to the same uncomfortable truth. Control is not the same as comprehension. Bitcoin gives you control. PSBTs help tools coordinate that control. But comprehension is still your job. Next episode, we go into coin control. Why the coins your wallet chooses can change your privacy, your fees, and the story your transaction tells on-chain. Educational only, not financial, tax, legal, security, privacy, or estate planning advice.